I knew I never wanted to go through that again. I knew that I didn't want to be a part of that environment because what took place in that environment was an eye opener. It was like everything that I was seeing was not true. And everybody around me was fake or was not real. I totally displaced myself from that environment and never went back.
Welcome to the Journey Podcast, where we share some of the most inspiring stories on the planet, life lessons, and tools that will help you navigate through your own personal journey. I am your host, Josh Valentine.
Here we are live for the Journey Podcast with your host, Josh Valentine, and I'm really excited for today's special episode here on this podcast. And in case you're wondering, we are actually here at the Smoke District, West Chase in Florida, one of the places that I frequent from time to time. Sometimes I'm here with Trey, and I'm really excited to bring on my brother, Tristian Turner, also known as Trey First Class, and it's really exciting for me to bring him on because he's also responsible for all of this beautiful production, and I know that he'll be on many podcasts in the future and also a big support system of mine. Trey's story is absolutely incredible, and I know that you guys will be able to get a great deal of inspiration from it, some life lessons along the way. And here on the Journey Podcast, my hope is that by showcasing many amazing stories, you'll be able to get some life lessons and possibly some inspiration for your journey, whatever that journey is. With that being said, my brother, Trey, appreciate you being on, brother, of course. And
Thank you.
I'd love
Thank you for having
to
me.
start, absolutely, I'd love to start by you just giving the people a little bit about your journey so far through life. So there's a lot of things that I can refer to you as. For example, most people know of you as a content creation professional, right? But you're much more than that. You're a serial entrepreneur. And I recently met Trey a couple of months ago through a business endeavor, and that's how we got connected. And as they say, your vibe attracts your tribe. And I just knew after meeting you that you'd be one of the brothers that I'd be doing a lot of life with. So if you don't mind, give the people a little bit about your backstory. And I'd love to go a little bit deeper into also just where you are today and the vision moving forward. That'd be amazing, brother.
As you said, I'm a content professional, and I haven't always gone by that title per se. I started out as just a photographer, videographer, just like most people pick up a camera, and they realize they have a knack for it. And for me, it wasn't exactly something that I saw myself doing professionally and even like career-wise. It was just something I was having fun with. But as time went on, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the story, I realized that this is where my heart actually was, and it was dormant for a while. In the beginning, it was Trey, the rapper.
I didn't know that part of the story. Yeah.
It was Trey First Class, the rapper. It was
Nice.
Trey First Class, the dancer. I wanted to be a model. I knew I wanted to do something in entertainment,
Got it.
but I wasn't sure what it was yet. And back in high school is when I first picked up the camera. I was filming YouTube videos of me dancing. And that's when I don't know if you were familiar with the jerk movement.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's when I first realized, okay, I want to dance. I like the pin drops. So I was doing all types of pin drops.
I remember you had the Harlem Shake back in my days.
The Harlem Shake. I still can't do that now.
I used to be killing the Harlem Shake back in those days.
Yeah, no, see, and it wasn't until the jerk movement where I started trying to learn other different dances.
Got it.
But I had a dance team, so it wasn't just me. It was a dance group. We were on the street jerking. I was with the camera. Everyone loved my angles, what I would do with the camera. And I just had fun with it. It wasn't until college, and as I said, I was Trey the rapper at one point. So I went to school for music.
Got it.
And something told me that is what I wanted. Like, I was gonna do that. I was gonna pursue music. I was gonna record, mix, master, even my own music and others. The whole time I'm in college, I'm recording videos.
Wow.
I'm taking photos of models. I'm doing headshots for teachers. I'm doing just all around production, not music at all. So that's what's making me money. That's what I'm having fun with. And I guess needless to say, it was pretty clear where my passion was the whole time. And I finished college. I didn't drop out. I went all the way through. I got my bachelor's degree. And when I finished and went into an internship at a recording studio in Atlanta.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I didn't know that part of the story. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was an opportunity that I dreamed for, honestly. It was like, when I wanted to be a rapper, that was the studio that I recorded in, because that's where all the Atlanta rappers recorded in. And so when I applied, they accepted me. I'm a graduate from Full Sail, one of the biggest schools for sound engineering. And so they accepted me. I moved to Atlanta, and I was an intern. I was like an actual intern.
Wow.
Taking out trash, running errands, doing just the dirty work. It didn't feed me. It didn't fill me.
Got it.
Fulfill me. Meanwhile, on the side, I'm also doing photography and video while
course.
I'm doing that. So after that, it was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to Tampa and then intertwine what I learned from college into production, which has helped me add more value and become the person that I am today. So
I can relate to that story in so many ways, because when you're growing up as a young brother in the hood, a lot of the times the people that you resonate with the most, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be in the hood, you could be growing up in the suburbs as a brother, and the people you typically resonated with back in those days, this was pre-social media, were the ball players, were the rappers. And I had at one point in my life aspired to be in the NFL, and I went down that path and basically went off to college, played football in college, and I ended up transitioning, obviously, outside of that specific path. And my question to you is, when you initially went to college, because I did the college thing and I was always taught, go to school, get good grades so you can get the good job. And I looked at success as this person working corporate America with the office overlooking the beautiful view with my little briefcase and things like that.
Yeah.
And that was like the backup plan, right? I went to school for international business, and I figured I'd probably work in a corporate job at some point in time. But for you, what was the vision before going off to college? What did you want to do with your degree?
Before I decided to go, what was my
what was your intention going into college? Were you planning on being in entertainment specifically, and that's why you chose the college you chose?
Okay, so what's crazy is, when I decided that I wanted to go to Full Sail, when I said that's the school I wanted to go to, I was still in this rapper mindset. I was like, I want to be a rapper, and this is where like all the great equipment is, the studios where I can learn how to do a lot of stuff myself. So when I went and realized, and a lot of kids that I went to school with started to realize this, and they dropped out.
Got it.
Because they came for the wrong reasons.
Of course.
And so for me, yes, it was, I want to be a rapper. I feel like this will be a stepping stone. I realized this wasn't exactly a stepping stone to becoming a rapper, but it was a stepping stone if I wanted to become a world-renowned recording engineer.
Got it. Yeah.
I got in there, and I started to, my purpose or reason for going started to shift a little bit, and I wasn't extremely set back by it. It was just, okay, all right, I can still get something from it.
Of course.
And so I started to learn, okay, so it's not really if you want to be a producer. Yeah, it helps you if you want to be a producer, but it's not for that.
Absolutely.
If you want to be a rapper, it might help you, but it's not for that.
Of course.
And when I realized, okay, this is not going to get me there, I finished school. I was not going to drop out. I wasn't going to change my degree program. And that was really my plan A. And that was like my only plan. And so after that, it was just like, okay, let me just graduate. Let me make my mama proud. Let me get the degree and see what I can get out of this. And so to answer the question, my plan after school was to work in a recording studio and to record myself as well as all the famous celebrity artists that are out there.
It's interesting because sometimes you go to school and society is telling you that's the right thing to do, but think about every freshman in college these days. How many actually know what they want to do with their lives? So I think that is profound, that you didn't necessarily know for sure or for certain where you were going to end up, but you knew that it was going to be somewhere in this realm.
That this was the way. This was
Yeah.
the path.
For example, entrepreneurship wasn't necessarily glorified as it is today. This was pre-social media.
Exactly.
Saying that you were an entrepreneur was like saying I'm a hustler and I haven't figured out this school thing, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't until social media praising this entrepreneurial lifestyle where it finally became socially accepted. I went to school for international business. I knew I wanted to do something pertaining to business because I loved business and I loved the idea of building wealth and making money. But I didn't necessarily know exactly where I was going to be working. It wasn't crystal clear on that. It was just like a fallback in a sense. But I wanted to be in that realm.
Yeah.
So the way it sounds is for you on your journey, it was the same. You knew you wanted to be somewhere in entertainment. Being a rapper would have been ideal. For me, going to the NFL would have been ideal, but the backup for me was just still being in, maybe not sports, but at least being in business, because that was also something that I was passionate about.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this. You went to school and you probably didn't ever need your degree. And I most certainly didn't need my college degree myself. And the thing about that is sometimes there are kids that spend 4 years and they leave with regret because now they're working in a field that isn't necessarily tied to their degree. And there's that regret, like I wasted 4 years of my life. How did you feel about your degree and the thought of never even really needing it per se to do what it is that you do today?
I will say my degree, it didn't lead, I didn't need it to do what I'm doing today, but it did allow me, it helped me in a way, and I'll explain that in a second, get me to where I am today. And the reason I say that is because I graduated my bachelor's degree in science, right? So it was a science degree. And with that degree, I was able to get a government job. And I wasn't going to get that job or that pay scale without the bachelor's degree. And to me, it was crazy because it was like, wait, but I have a bachelor's of science in recording arts. But because it was a bachelor's of science, it qualified me to work that position.
Of course.
I was able to acquire a great full-time job with the government, great benefits. So it was something that I was able to do and work to save money and to put towards actually going full-time with production. And I did not need that because a lot of the skills that I know today and stick to today, I rarely use what I learned in college. I use a lot of what I learned on YouTube. I learned a lot of what I...
YouTube University.
Exactly. I always refer people to YouTube University. Go to YouTube, you can learn a lot. Trust me.
Absolutely.
And you save a lot of money. And so a lot of the stuff that I use today, I learned on YouTube. I either learned myself or I learned from a mentor or a coach. The degree was really just, for me at the time, it was just like a token of an award. Like I did it. I made it through. I felt like that degree was going to be much more of a ticket in the door, somewhere much greater than the government, because I loved working for the government, but that was not my goal. I didn't plan on retiring there. So I look at it now, and like even for in the future when I have kids, I'm not going to push them to go off to college. I'm not going to say, hey, get you a degree. I'm just going to say, find something you love to do and do that. Because I felt if I had that mindset, or if I was pushed in that direction, or if it was more clear to just do what you love to do and then pursue that, then I would have done that as opposed to going to college for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And as far as that journey, and I'm going to veer to the left a little bit with this, on the journey to here, to where I am now, I actually considered even enlisting in the military at one point.
I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, I know how
it was because college didn't put me in a place of stability. And I have family that's in the military, and I see how stable their lives are, and how they're able to do a lot of what they want to do when they want to do it. And I considered enlisting. I took the ASVAB. I scored pretty well on it, and when I saw that there wasn't, I really wanted to do. I wanted to hold a camera. If they didn't have a job for me where I could hold the camera, take pictures, then I didn't want to do it. And so when I took the test and I started looking for the opportunities they had, I said, no, I don't want to. I was like, I'm going to stay out here. I'd rather stay out here and struggle than, 4 to 20 years, something like that, than to set aside 40 to 20 years of my life not doing what I love.
Got it. Why not just enroll in the military and just do your videography on the side, or just maybe after 4 years transition into videography? Why just leave it cold turkey and pursue a path into content creation?
So I feel like that was a two-part question. So why not do it and then do it on the side while I'm in there? So from what I've seen, like for the military, so it was the Air Force that I enlisted into. So there was a lot of time constraints. You had to be certain places. Granted, you got to travel a lot.
Yep.
But I didn't want to be told what to do, I guess.
Of course. Yeah.
I didn't want to be like, oh, you have to be here, you got to do this. I want to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
Find the coaches that I need, find the mentors, and just have fun while I figure out, where I need to be and what I need to do. So that was one. But the 4 years was just too long for me too. It was 4 years, I could do 4 years, and then honorable discharge. No, I didn't want to. If the job for photography was there, then there was a pretty big chance I was probably going to be in the military right now.
Yeah.
But I think it was God. It was a sign saying, hey, you know what? This isn't for you. This is the direction. This isn't the path. And I'm thankful for it. And I never thought I'd even consider enlisting, but I was at a point in my life where I was like, okay, what next?
Of course.
And I was going from job to job to job. Like I've had so many different types of jobs in different fields that I never thought I'd fall into. And it was just time for me to figure something out. And
for sure.
Yeah.
So what took you out of the whole government security job? Because I know you mentioned working in that. How did you end up leaving that?
So after 4 years of working there, the momentum for my business started to pick up. I was meeting people, I was attending networking events. And
so just to recap for the people, right? I just don't want to lose anyone here, because we went from the government job to the military, then to working job to job. Take me back to like your first clients. Like I know you mentioned you got the camera, but when did you actually make a decision to start actually making money from this?
So my first clients, when I first started out, I was charging like dirt cheap. Sometimes I was even doing free. So my clients were like the aspiring model, actor, dancer, here and there, family portraits, weddings, but I wasn't professional yet, of course, so I wasn't charging much of anything, or I was doing it for free. So as time went on, I developed my skills, and I started to develop a much more valuable clientele.
Got it.
And so when I was working at the government job, literally every day that I'm there, when I leave, I'm going to do a gig. I had nightly gigs. I was working in the nightclubs, doing photography in the nightclubs. I was doing weddings here and there. I was doing birthday parties. But I actually had a solidified photography gig as an in-house photographer in nightclub. And that's where it started for me. I was just at nightclub photography. Every Friday, Saturday night, I was doing photos. So I had constant income coming from that on a regular basis. And then throughout the week, here and there, I would get hired for some nightclub. But it was a ton of nightclub jobs, and from that, I started to pick up strippers, dancers that wanted photos. I started finding DJs that needed photography. And then from there, and I'm going like in order of of how the clientele just progressed. And so nightclub, progressing over to events. And when I say events, I mean like corporate events.
Got it.
Nonprofit organizations, fundraisers, just big speaking events. When I got introduced to the corporate event world, that changed the game for me. And mind you, I'm still working at the government job. So when you acquire a certain level of clientele, it requires a lot more of your time. It requires a lot more attention to detail. It requires a lot more value to be served, because you're working with these aren't just people that are looking for you to provide a service. They're looking for you to provide value. And so while I'm at the VA, every day I'm just thinking about, okay, this client needs me, this client needs me, this client needs me. And I can't be there for 8 hours out the day. And I'm like trying to text them, I'm trying to respond, and put your phone away. All right. So I got tired of that. I want to say it built up to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to take, because I built up a lot of vacation time. So we built up vacation time. I built up a lot of vacation time, and I said, you know what? I'm going to take a month off, and I'm going to focus strictly on my business, and I'm going to see how much money I can generate in 30 days if I focus just strictly on production. I could remember like it was yesterday. It was the month of November, and I took off the 30 days. Within that month, I made 2 times more than I make at the government job.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a big eye opener. Yeah.
It was, and it was, of course, because I was available. I couldn't say, hey, I'm not available because I have to work. Yeah. I was available. I had more time to dedicate to my craft. I actually acquired a license during that time, and it just allowed me to pay more attention to what I really wanted to do. And at the end of that month, I said, okay, I can leave this job, and I only imagine if I focused on it for months at a time consecutively, that double the income would turn to triple, to quadruple, and it just continued to go from there. So 3 months later, I decided to leave. It was not easy, giving up those benefits, giving up that vacation time.
It's a tough one.
Giving up that retirement plan.
Yep.
It wasn't easy. It was scary. And till this day, I don't regret it. As soon as you leave, and a lot of people don't realize that when you let go of something, you allow something else to come in.
Of course.
And you might be letting go of just like something small. It could be anything. It could be a bad habit. It could be just a diet. It could be somebody from your life that's just not around anymore that can change the whole spectrum of your world. And so just me leaving and saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do every day, and I'm going to scale this. It opened a whole new world for me. So from there, left the VA, and I was traveling more than I ever thought I would. I was like, I want to say that same month, I was in Oklahoma, Miami. The next month, Vegas, Miami, Baltimore. It was just continued travels. And if I never left that job, I would not have had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
I would not have had the opportunity to meet the people that allowed me to scale my business, to meet the new clients that allowed me to scale my business, because I work with businesses now. I don't work with just, it's not a customer relationship anymore. It's a B2B relationship. And they need you all throughout the week. Absolutely. They're not only available, it's not a weekend type of thing for them. So they need you Monday through Friday, Sunday to Sunday. And they need you at 5 o'clock in the morning, or they need you at midnight. And so it was a world changer, and me making that one change and leaving my job also required me to make a lot of other changes in my life as well. That was a big part of me leaving my job, but I always, if anybody asks me what inspires me or who inspired me, Myron Golden, I'm not sure if you heard of him.
Yep.
Reading his book, and reading in general, I encourage anybody to just pick up a book and read. Reading his book really changed my mindset.
What book is that?
It's called Boss Moves.
Okay, nice.
Reading his book really changed my mindset. It allowed me to see that what I wanted was actually possible. And so after I read his book, I watched a couple of his videos. What's great, and surprisingly, I don't know how it happened, but I'm working with one of his students.
Nice.
And just being close to his students and also seeing how they're implementing his teachings, and it's like I'm seeing it like live time right in front of me. This is what he's talking about. And I was able to like just take that book and pretty much use it as like a guide. And till now, I still read that same book over and over again. Like I read it multiple times. Myron Golden was one of the biggest reasons I decided to leave my job. And if anybody asks how I can help them do the same thing, I'm going to refer them to that book.
Nice. Now, when you talk about inspiration, Myron Golden is obviously, from a business standpoint, a major inspiration for a lot of people. But what about when it comes to specifically your artistry in videography or content creation or photography? Who was there any inspiration? What inspired you actually to get into that field out of everything? I know you wanted to be specifically in entertainment, but it didn't necessarily start out as content creation. So when it comes to just getting into that realm, was there any source of inspiration that led you to that?
Okay, so first my passion to create was one of them. And when I saw that there was a need for content, like a drastic need increase from, I want to say, like right after COVID, when everyone started going into entrepreneurship and building their online platforms, I realized that the need for content went up like drastically. And so I did what most people would do. You move with the industry. You move with what people need, what's in high demand. And I felt like for me, it was something that I knew very well because I was already doing it myself on a regular basis. I was already creating content myself. And a lot of people, business owners, don't want to do it themselves. And just a lot of people in general don't want to spend time on Instagram or Facebook. So I was inspired by just the need for content. I felt like I defined a new purpose for what I was doing. And it made me identify the value in what I actually can do for people.
Of course.
Outside of just taking a great photo or taking a nice video.
For sure.
It helped me deliver. It helped me change my messaging.
Absolutely.
As opposed from just a photographer to a content professional.
Of course.
That's going to yield results for you.
Yeah, definitely. It reminds me of this Ikigai framework that the Japanese use. And Ikigai means a meaning for living or for existing in a sense. And with the Ikigai framework, one of the things you have to identify is not only what are you passionate about, but also what the world needs. And I remember that was a big one for me because I was passionate about a lot of things, but maybe the world didn't necessarily need another football player. Maybe the world didn't necessarily need another guy working corporate America. But I realized the world needed leadership. And I was in the right space because not only was I passionate about teaching and coaching and mentoring, but also just leading people in general. And I knew that there was a void in the marketplace for good quality leadership. And not only competent leadership, but compassionate leadership. That's when I knew that I was in alignment in a sense. And by discovering what the world needs, that's where you can discover, again, a profession or vocation for that matter. In your case, you saw a void in the marketplace, but you were also passionate about it, and it came together and created your profession as a content creation professional.
Right.
So that's
and I always
really great point.
I always look at coaches and mentors as one of the most valuable professions that exist today. And it's not just coaching and mentorship for business owners, because everybody needs it.
Absolutely.
Everybody needs it. Life coaches, business coaches, we have them for reasons. I feel like a lot of without the profession you guys have, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be at the level that I am now.
Same here.
So I wouldn't be at a constant progression in my industry where I'm challenging my mind. Where I'm actually identifying things about myself that I never knew.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's one of those things where you help people figure out what it is about themselves. You help them figure out the value in themselves. And whether it's based off of past experiences, whether it's based off of relationships, habits, whatever it is, voids, it takes a coach or mentor to help someone figure that out.
Most definitely. Yeah. I love the saying that if you empty your wallet on your mind will fill your wallet. And when it comes
There you
to
go.
coaching, it's one of those things that investing in a coach, sometimes it's not enough to just go on a YouTube, right? Sometimes you need that belly to belly interaction. Sometimes you need to invest in that coach's time, right? So that they can actually pour into you. I love that when it comes to just overall success is finding someone that you can model because they ultimately have the blueprint. For me, for example, it was Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins was or is the GOAT when it comes to everything coaching. And I really just immersed myself in his work and really studied his path. I really studied the blueprint that he laid out. And that's the amazing thing when it comes to coaches is because they lay out the blueprint, it's just a matter of following that. It's in coaching, it's referred to as modeling. When you just model someone that has what you want out of life, then by all means, just see what it is that they're doing and model their success. And that's the power of just having really good mentorship and really good coaches along the way to give you that guidance. And it shortens the learning curve. The coaches make all of the mistakes so that you don't necessarily have to.
Right.
So you see not only what has worked for them, but also what hasn't worked for them. And you take that and you implement it on your own journey. This will definitely save you a lot of the headaches, save you a lot of the discouragement and setbacks, and it'll also collapse time frames on your journey. So it is important to study the journey of the greats that came before you and model it in the best way possible, but in your way, if that makes sense.
Right. I always like to make this comparison, but finding a coach versus going to college, I would always choose finding a coach.
Oh yeah.
Over anything.
Oh yeah.
And I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'm
Most
not
definitely.
trying to deter anybody from going to college, but you'll save you a lot more time. You'll save you a lot more money. And it's not even about saving money. You'll save you a lot more time.
Yeah.
And you'll get much more value from finding you a coach, a mentor that is doing that is in a position where you want to see yourself.
Yeah, most definitely.
As far as my inspiration when it comes to the craft that I am in, production, I wouldn't say there's a particular person that I'm inspired by. I'm inspired by art just in general. I'm inspired by other photographers that are killing it in their own respective ways, that have their own style, that have their own skill, and are doing great with it. I did have, I guess I would call him a coach. I had a photographer who pretty much gave me opportunities. He let me shadow him. He taught me some techniques that he knew that I still carry to this day, and we still keep in contact. He's a great guy. But now we're on totally different clientele as well.
Of course.
Our clientele is much different, but I was inspired from his work and from just a lot of other people's work that I find online. And then I take bits and pieces from what I like and I just make it mine. I make it my own independent art.
Of course.
So
I like that, man. One of the things that comes to mind when you mentioned just taking bits and pieces, I remember hearing early on that you never want to take advice from someone you wouldn't be willing to trade places with. And I remember also hearing that one of the worst things that can happen on your journey is you meet your mentor. And what do I mean by that is sometimes you meet the mentor and you start seeing them for their flaws, for their vulnerabilities, for things that you're probably not necessarily going to agree with.
right.
So you may very well have a mentor in content creation, for example, but then you see the way they go about their business practices, and it's really important to just take what is valuable for you, take what is beneficial for you, and then make it your own. Not necessarily to do every single thing that they do, because they may have a successful business, but they're not a success when it comes to their health or when it comes to their family.
Right.
You have to look at what area of their life would you be willing to trade places with? You may be willing to trade places with them when it comes to their finances, for example. Like they're killing it, but then they just got divorced and their children hate them. And
I don't want that.
This is a real thing, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to mentorship, I could appreciate the fact that you would mention someone like a Myron Golden, even though he's not a content creation professional, but you take bits and pieces from him, you take bits and pieces from your other source of inspiration, and just different people along the way. But never think that your mentor is going to have it all together. So always keep an open mind and be receptive and separate the teacher from the teaching if possible. Because the teacher may very well be teaching really good things that actually work for them. But if you cling to the idea of them being perfect, then you're going to let yourself down in a major way. So when it comes to videography or just any kind of content creation, you may start to realize, oh, I actually wouldn't want to go about it this way, but there's still value there. So I love the fact that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and remember, you don't have to have just one mentor. You can have mentors for several different parts in your life. You can have a life mentor. You can have a mentor for business. You can have a mentor for content creation, a mentor for parenting, just whatever it is that you want to improve on, find a mentor for it. You can have multiple mentors. It's a thing. A lot of people have more than one coach or mentor.
Absolutely. One thing I know about you, and I'm sure a lot of people will start to learn this about you, is, and I was actually very impressed when I met you and I found out this aspect of your life, and that's your sobriety when it comes to alcohol. I think it's very admirable that you would go on this journey of sobriety. And I know you gave me a little bit of an idea of the reasoning behind it, and I know it's tied to your line of work in the entertainment space, right? If you don't mind just sharing a little bit about why you decided to go on this path of sobriety when it comes to alcohol, and maybe some of the benefits that you've experienced, because there's a lot of, let's say, young men or young women just wanting to go full-time in entrepreneurship, but maybe they do battle with alcohol addiction and things like that, or they're going on a path of self-sabotage because they're always out in the party scene, right? What has that journey been like for you?
The decision for me to stop drinking, I'm doing this for years, so it's a year trial to see how it works. Mind you, I like to challenge myself.
Of course.
Like I did in November, I did the 30-day challenge. I've done multiple challenges in my life, and this for me is just another one of those challenges that I put forth to improve my living situation or improve my value of the way I live. So some of us, I know we start drinking at pretty young ages. And for me, it was right around 17. So it was right around 17 when I started. I think that was the first time I went to a strip club.
Got it.
It was at 17, and I was turning up at that age, and it was lots of drinking. So that was actually that was during college. So I wasn't that much of a drinker in college. I want to say just because it didn't really benefit my progress throughout college. So I didn't drink that much. I drank occasionally, but when I finished and after 21 hit, when 21 hit, you go to Vegas, you do the Vegas thing, you have a great time. From age 21 to about 27, 28, it was just nonstop partying. And it always came with drinking. The people that I hung around were also in the same environment. That's what we lived in that environment. So me being a photographer, always shooting in the nightclubs, they give you a bar comp. So you don't have to buy your drinks. They just, hey, you're the photographer, we pay you, and you drink free. So I'm drinking, having a good time. I wouldn't never get I'd probably have like 2 drinks if I'm doing photography. But every day it was that. So with that lifestyle, my relationships that I built were living in that lifestyle. Anybody I was dating was a part of that lifestyle.
Like they say, your vibe attracts your tribe.
Your vibe attracts your tribe. You become your environment, pretty much. You become a
course.
product of your environment. And that's what I became. So to me, it wasn't, of course, throughout those years, it wasn't looked at as an issue.
Got it.
For me, it was just, this is life. This is my life now. I'm having fun. I'm making money. People love me. I have this level of popularity. And it wasn't until, so it was a lead up. So I would say the beginning of it, I was introduced to spirituality, right? And this was maybe 4 years ago, about, after my last breakup. And that was a very toxic relationship, like very toxic. Lots of drinking, lots of extracurricular. From then, I started getting into crystals and meditation. I was still drinking. I was still doing a little bit of extracurricular and smoking weed. And when I left that toxic relationship, I knew I never wanted to go through that again. I knew that I didn't want to be a part of that environment, because what took place in that environment was an eye-opener. It was like everything that I was seeing was not true. And everybody around me was fake or was not real. I totally displaced myself from that environment and never went back. And never contacted anybody. And it was one of those things where sometimes when you want change in your life, you do have to, again, you got to make some changes.
Of course.
And that's what I did. I told myself I'd never be in a relationship ever again. And when I finally decided to, it was because I actually found somebody that was not anything. It didn't come from that world.
Yeah.
It came from a totally different world where it was pretty much foreign to me, and I liked it. I was like, I don't know this. I want to learn more about it, and it grew on me, and I fell in love with it. When I met Liz, the girl I'm with now, a lot of, because it was only, I want to say it was maybe just 2 years, a lot of that toxicity still lingered within the relationship that we had, and it was always linked to drinking.
Yep.
So because I had this relationship with drinking that was tied to the partying, and just, some people, they don't like to admit that drinking has an influence to a certain level. Some people say, oh, I can handle my liquor, it don't do nothing to me, I'm the same person I am when I'm sober. For the most part, that's not true.
Yeah.
We can all agree on that. And for me, I never believed that it didn't have an influence, but I didn't think it was that bad until it started to affect the relationship I'm in now, which I knew I wanted to be in. I knew this is what I wanted for the rest of my life. And it wasn't until I had somebody that was willing to be honest with me and, yo, like, this is, every time you drink, every time, and I'm just like, so I had to sit with myself. Is it really the alcohol?
Yeah.
Is it really the drinking? And then I realized, okay, yeah, so yeah, it's the drinking, but there's a certain level of control that you also need to have over the decisions you make in life, right?
Yeah.
And so what I needed to do was make a decision. It was either fix whatever it was. If it wasn't the drinking, figure out what it was, fix it, or lose what I got. And so I decided I'm gonna stop drinking. Now, before I decided to stop drinking, I had to have a conversation with myself. I had to sit with myself. I even went out and I drank again, just to pay attention this time. Like,
Yep.
I drank and I was like, okay. And it happened again. I was like, okay, all right, it's the drinking. I was like, let me stop. Let me stop, because this is the problem. I'm thankful she helped me realize that, because it could have gotten worse. I noticed it was the alcohol, it was the drinking, and so I decided New Year's was my last drink. I have a drink tonight, and I had it, and it was, not only did I realize like how alcohol affected just me, it affected the relationship as a whole.
Of course.
But I would never tell someone they should stop drinking. It's a decision I feel like they need to make on their own.
Do you ever
But
get tempted? Like,
yeah,
just with alcohol in general?
What's crazy, after I made the decision, it was just like, it was in the back of my mind. I look at it and I just wonder, because it's been, 7-8 months now?
Yep.
I just look at it sometimes and I just go, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
For sure. For sure.
There was a point where I felt like I needed it to be more social.
Of course.
Which it did make me more social.
Yeah.
Which kind of got me into trouble.
Yeah.
But it was just, Yeah, no, I wouldn't say I get tempted. I wonder sometimes. I look at it and I'm just like, 4 more months.
Yeah.
4 more months, and then we'll see if I even
Just
feel.
yeah, for sure. Now, when it comes to alcohol in general and just not necessarily drinking at all, we're here at a lounge, so they obviously sell drinks. And
Oh, yeah.
one of the things about not drinking is you save yourself a lot of money. So that in itself can be very valuable if you're on your path to budgeting or just getting yourself out of debt. But what have been some of the other benefits for you, especially as it applies to entrepreneurship and your relationship?
With entrepreneurship, big benefit. I'm gonna just start with just not waking up with a hangover. Not, you save a lot of money. Like you said, you save a lot more money when you're not drinking. And you just rid the possibility of any sort of mishaps happening because of alcohol. And I feel like that is one of the worst reasons to mess up anything business related.
Of course.
And so there's a lot of business owners who can drink and operate their businesses just fine. But if you are not that person, identify it early on, please, and knock it out the park. But it's been a great decision in regards to my business. It's helped me be more productive. It's allowed me to actually make more healthy decisions in my life in regards to just being up at a decent time, going to sleep at a decent time, not spending time in certain environments. Like, I don't need to go to the nightclub anymore. I don't have to go to a bar to go have a good time. I can go to social settings like this and meet people. And surprisingly, you actually meet very nice people in these environments. You meet other business owners in these type of environments. And I've built up a knack and a routine to be in these environments a lot more often because it's not going to try to encourage me to drink or I don't have to deal with a drunken person.
It's funny because I remember the very first time I ever heard the word mocktail was from you.
Really?
Yeah, we were at that networking. We had a rooftop networking event, and I said, Trey, you want a drink? And he ordered a mocktail. I was like, what the hell is a mocktail? And I forgot that you were on your sobriety, and I didn't even know that was a thing. But I thought it was pretty cool because sometimes you're socially just in certain environments and social environments, and it does help to have something in your hands to ease up the weirdness, the awkwardness.
Yeah.
So your way of compensating for that is by still having something in your hand, but you have a mocktail instead of a cocktail.
Right, and it looks just like the regular.
Exactly. No one would ever know.
There's no alcohol.
No one would ever know. I love just this topic in general because I've been very adamant about controlling my vices throughout my lifetime. And there's this old Native American story of how every single person has two wolves that are in them. You have the wolf that represents the light and the wolf that represents the dark. And they say they're always battling with one another. And legend has it that the one wolf that always prevails is the one you feed the most. So if your wolf is, let's say, lust, if it's greed, if it's narcissism, if it's anything that's toxic, you have to starve that wolf if you don't want that wolf to prevail in your life. So for example, for me to take back control over lust, I had a lot of broken masculinity as examples throughout my childhood. My entire adulthood has been getting control over my personal lust. And one of the things that I did many years ago was just stop pornography. And I stopped pornography because I didn't want to feed that wolf. I didn't want to feed that lust and dehumanize the way I looked at women. I didn't want to just look at a woman as just some flesh that I can take advantage of. So another thing was making sure that whenever I was traveling on business and I was away from my wife, I would be very intentional about not smoking or drinking, because I don't do smoking as a lifestyle. Occasionally, if you're with friends or something like that, you may spark the leaf from time to time. And I realized that whenever I got myself in any kind of trouble, there was either smoking or drinking involved. So what did I do? I starved the wolf, and I put my focus on things that were actually conducive to my overall well-being, such as meditation or reading scripture or exercising, doing yoga, these kinds of things to keep myself occupied. In the world of psychology, one of the things that's known is two thoughts cannot occupy the mind simultaneously. If you're not filling that space or filling that void with something that's actually conducive to your well-being, something is going to fill in that void. Like you said, when you let something go, you open up room for
Something else.
So an idle mind is the devil's playground, and you don't want to stay idle. You want to have something to fill in that time. Just make sure that something is something that can actually be beneficial to your overall health and well-being and staying in the light, if you will. Going back to relationships, I know Liz very well, and you guys, from what I see, have a really beautiful relationship. You both have very similar energy, calm, cool, and collected energy. Now, with balancing, and I want the real deal Holyfield. I'm very open and honest when it comes to just even my personal relationship with my wife. But when it comes to the relationship that you're in and keeping balance when it comes to that and entrepreneurship and just everything else, you guys are obviously live together and you're involved in different businesses together. How has that journey been balancing love and business?
It's not easy. It's not easy at all. Life, it's not supposed to be easy. But when I made the decision to go full-time entrepreneurship, which it was a hard decision, as you guys know. I made that decision because I was confident that I was with a person that I could confidently move forward in that direction with. So being that both of us are pretty much brand new to this entrepreneurship world, right? So I had entered into this world much more sooner than she did, or even much more sooner than she considered going in that direction. So for me, it was, I'm figuring out how this works too. I don't know what this is like. I don't know, what comes with it. I don't know anything. So I'm figuring this out. So as I'm figuring it out and I'm starting to travel more often, we're being apart, it's not something that we're used to. Within the first year, I was there, I was working a job.
Of course.
And the next year, now I'm like barely home. And so for us, it was just communicating, right? Of course, communicating what we're not comfortable with, what we don't like, and then where we can adjust. And it's one of the biggest, I wouldn't say challenges, is I did a certain type of work that was X-rated, right? So I was doing OnlyFans photography. I was doing shooting strippers a lot at one point. And so I had to really pull back,
of course,
on that, because just like anything, there is a level of just respect in general that you got to have for your relationship, or just an understanding. If there's an understanding, then in your relationship, that's okay. Then by all means, do whatever works for you. I had to figure out what works. And in the beginning, it was just like, this is what I do. You knew this is what I did. You can't really it was a whole kind of back and forth for a while. But being able to balance the two. So making sure I have enough time to dedicate to her as well as to my business was one of those things where I had to learn. I had to learn how to make time for my relationship, because I'm full-time. I can't go do this. I can't go do that. We can't go eat out all the time. So there was a level of discipline that came. But for a relationship, for anybody that's in a relationship that has a business, you have to sit down and you have to have those long, hard conversations. You have to help the other person understand what you're doing, why you do it, especially because they don't know anything about it. When I took on a partner for my business, that was one of the biggest shifts in my life. It was another person that had a say or an influence on what I did in my business,
of course,
and where I was and how often I was there and things like that. It was tough. And I'm not going to say we got it all figured out now. We still have areas that we're trying to figure out. Now that we're in business together now, her and I, she has a bit more understanding of what it takes and why we can't, why I couldn't spend as much time with her before.
Yeah, most definitely.
So.
Yeah, no, I think that's super important. I love the fact that you mentioned that you guys do have those difficult conversations, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you make such a career shift, it does affect the person that you're with. And you have to make sure that you guys are both on the same page, that you include your partner in your vision, because if you don't, it's always going to feel as if they're not a part of it and there's separation. And you're already out in the field doing what it is that you're doing, not necessarily putting as much time as you used to. So it is important for them to just see things the way that you do and to sell them ultimately on your vision and why it's going to pay off in the long run. So I'm so happy that you mentioned that part. I know for my wife and I, business-wise, it literally almost took us out when it came to our relationship. It was by far one of the hardest things that we've had to overcome. Just learning how to work together as well and being on the same page. And sometimes you may have different views on how you go about your finances or manage your finances for that matter.
Yeah.
Especially if you're sharing bills. That's a completely different animal when it comes to the relationship. So it is important to have that open and honest communication and be vulnerable and also speak from a heart center, speak from a space of compassion and do your best not to just lash out on your partner when you're frustrated. I know one of the things that was very common for me was I'd be in business mode all the time and I'd treat my wife like a business partner. And you have to learn how to set those boundaries so that you're not treating your significant other like just some other business partner. Yes, business is business, but when you're not in business mode, you have to learn how to shut it down or switch your hat from business person to lover. That's so important when it comes to the preservation of the relationship, because where we had a lot of conflicts was the moment I would just still be treating her like a business partner and it's 30 minutes before bed and here I am now expecting some kind of intimacy, but we haven't connected on an emotional level because we've been in our heads the entire day with business stuff.
Right.
So it's so important to have that balance.
And thank you for that. As you can see, he's a great coach, you guys. I didn't have a coach or a mentor when it came to business and relationship and how to balance the two. Some people might need to have that. And I didn't have it. We had those tough conversations, those moments. I do feel like there were times where I treated her like a business partner or spoke to her like a business partner. And to her, it was just like, of course, she's probably like, why? There was no understanding.
Of course.
And just how it is where when I had partnered with my business partner, he's one of the greatest strategy consultants that I know. He's one of the greatest salesmen that I know. And so that was my reason for partnering with him. Plus, he's a great guy. We have a history, but there are parts of that relationship that I did not want seeping into my relationship with my girlfriend. And it was also one of those challenges where it's like basically my business or my relationship. I had to make some tough decisions. I wouldn't say hard, tough decisions. They were pretty easy because I knew what I wanted. So I had to make some decisions. I had to decide where I wanted to focus a certain amount of my attention versus not focusing it somewhere else. Yeah, I would say right now it's still a work in progress. It is much better. There is a much better understanding. And I would say right now the biggest thing is just being apart for those times where we're not able to be together.
Of course.
I'm traveling.
Yeah. It's interesting because it brings me back to a time in my marriage where for some reason, I don't know where I got this from, but I adopted this 50-50 mentality. And as business partners, you may be 50-50 with your significant other. And the thing about it is you can never expect for your partner to give 100% of them. For example, if a woman is having a child, my wife and I, we had 3 kids in 3 years, and she was the one that had to push them out. Where I went wrong was I'd have all these expectations for her to do 50% of the business. And us men could never conceptualize what women go through emotionally, through postpartum, through depression, through identity crises. All of these different things are a part of their respective journeys, and we could never understand because we are not women. Exactly. Just like women can't necessarily understand what we go through as men, wanting to be the provider and the protectors and having all of this testosterone and masculinity. My biggest recommendation would be for those of you who are business partners with your significant other, just make sure you don't adopt this 50-50 mindset. Give your significant other, especially when they're in the nurturing phase, give them that space and honor that season of their lives to allow them to do the nurturing and be there for the children is such an essential piece of the puzzle when it comes to just relationships overall.
Yeah, and as a man, it's probably be one of the most beautiful things you'll ever
witness. Oh yeah, exactly.
If you allow it to just
absolutely, definitely
do what it's supposed to do.
Oh yeah. So just to switch gears a little bit, I want to hear a little bit more, Trey, about your childhood, about just what it was like for you growing up. You have this very calm, cool, and collected temperament, but you also have a past, and you also have part of your past that was a little wild and just out there dancing in the dark, right?
Exactly.
What was life like? Did you have it easy? Were you entitled? Did you grow up in the burbs? What was life like for you growing up?
So my mom, I was raised by my mom, single mother, 4 kids, and she was very hardworking. She had a lot of masculinity in her, to say the least. She had to be strong, pretty much. And growing up, I was not wealthy. I didn't live in the nicest neighborhoods. I lived in the projects at one point, and slowly, gradually progressed from there to the hood, to a house in the suburbs in Georgia, and then here to Florida. And just throughout that, my childhood, not having my dad there it was tough, but it was one of those things where you don't really know what you're missing because you never had it.
Of course.
Outside of just seeing other families that have both parents there. But I had older sisters. I had 2 older sisters and an older brother. I was the youngest of 4, and I would say one of the best things about my upbringing is there was discipline, there was structure, and there was support in all areas. And my mom, although she was by herself, she always found a way. If she couldn't do it, she had relationships with people that could make anything happen pretty much. And so I definitely, appreciate her for that. And just, as a kid, and I do a lot of shadow work here and there now because I was much more, I don't want to use the word outgoing, but I had a lot more, like I was free spirited. I was much more free.
For sure.
I was much more just out there.
Yeah.
And then of course life happens. You start drinking, you start partying, you do all types of things, you go through traumas, and it could affect you as a person, it affects your growth, your development. And I got to a point, of course, not having the father figure there, seeing my mom date other men was different for me because she didn't really start dating, I want to say, until maybe I was in middle school or high school. And so that was different for me, seeing somebody else there, a man telling me what to do. And just, okay. It was nice to have around, it was cool, but it was weird.
You wasn't really feeling it.
It was weird. There's a lot of that where I felt like, and I started to realize in my mid-20s, early 20s, mid-20s, that I was missing something, but it didn't click immediately that I was missing, that I didn't have a dad, right? That was present pretty much. I realized that one piece that was missing from my childhood was affecting a lot of different areas of my life, such as my relationships, such as just the certain level of masculinity that I presented every day that I would have liked to have.
Of course.
And so now I'm pretty much on the search, or not on the search, I'm seeking how to become more in touch with my masculine side, so that I can be that for my relationship, for my girlfriend, and for just everybody around me.
Yeah.
So I wasn't brought up with, it wasn't rich. I had to work for what I wanted. I hustled. I sold candy in high school, like the fundraising candy.
Oh yeah, same here.
With
I remember those days.
I went to Sam's Club. I was always a hustler because my mom was a hustler, and my dad, he is too. He's an entrepreneur, but I wouldn't, maybe genetically or hereditarily, it was there.
Of course.
But the hustle was always in me. I was always, how do I make some money here? So that translates pretty well in what I do today. And
what did you want to be when you were that young?
when I was a kid, I wanted to be a rapper.
Who was your idol?
As a kid, it was Bow Wow,
Bow Wow. Wow.
Lil Romeo.
Oh, wow.
It was
Little Romeo, nice.
It was Bow Wow, Lil Romeo. I had
Nice.
the tapes. I had the cassettes. I'd be on the karaoke machine at home recording, rewinding the tape, holding down the play and the record button at the same
Crazy.
time.
Yeah.
So I could record. That was who I wanted to be like them. And
That's amazing.
And then,
So you had that part of you that was like wanting to, let's say, rap, but you also had that entrepreneurial spirit in
Yes.
you. And I always say that entrepreneurship isn't a profession per se, it's who you are, it's who you embody,
Yeah.
right? Being a natural risk taker or being someone that wants to do their own thing, it's what you embody, right? Your attitude, you have an entrepreneurial spirit, as you oftentimes hear. So
like a lifestyle.
yeah, and you could see how later on in life it definitely resurfaced, and hence why you're doing the entrepreneurial thing now, and you're still in some degree of entertainment in a sense, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Do you feel like there were any, I know you alluded to this earlier, but do you feel like, well, like what do you feel probably not having a dad present in your life, how do you feel like that may have showed up later on in adulthood? For example, my biological father wasn't in my life ever, and he lived pretty much less than a mile away my entire life, and I never saw him. And I actually went out to build a relationship with him once I became an adult, before he passed away when he was about 43 years old.
Sorry.
And I appreciate it. And the thing about it wasn't until recent years when I was looking for advice, I was looking for counsel, I was looking for some ear to listen, a masculine figure that was me in a sense.
Right.
Not from a stepfather or from anybody, like my father.
Yeah.
And it wasn't there. And I started to realize as time went on that I believe that I may have, and my wife pointed this out to me before, like I had this disease to please in a sense, and I was seeking the approval of people. And I believe that a lot of that has been due to not having a father figure in my life, and there being a void that was buried for many years, but started to reveal itself as I stepped into my fatherhood with my 3 little boys.
Right.
And I started to see myself in them. And as a result of seeing myself in them, it started to bring up these thoughts that I was once one of them, and I didn't have a daddy
Right.
that cared enough to make the initiative to see me.
Yeah.
And I had all of these different talents and things that I was passionate about, and he never checked on me. He never came to really be intentional. I know he had specific moments that I can think of where he probably walked around the neighborhood that I had saw him. I can count with one hand the amount of times I recall that, but never coming to my mom and saying, hey, I'd really love to build a relationship with my son. And me being a father and just seeing myself in my children really brought that up for me. And it was also healing in a sense to connect with my inner child and discover that my inner child still had some wounds that had to be stitched up, and I had to go and reconnect in a sense and get in tune with that part of me. But I'd love to hear perhaps maybe any ways that it may have affected you later on in life.
So, again, I guess not having him there was not knowing what it's like to have him there. I'm not really sure what I was missing out on. So I don't know, for instance, I know what I would like to see. I know what kind of man I'd like to see myself be or progress into. And not having him around, it was, all right, he's not around. I really don't know what kind of man he was. I'm not sure if he was like the type to open the door for the woman, or if he was the chivalry type of person. So I didn't know, but I saw in other people things that I would have liked to have. And it's okay, if I had this growing up, if I had this as I was growing up, I would probably already be here. I'd be doing these things,
of course,
more often, probably getting flowers just
Yeah.
randomly. Again, which I don't know if that's the kind of man
Yeah.
he was, but
you'd have the blueprint.
I've seen some things. I'm just like, man, I don't have that, but I want to
Of
develop
course.
it. I want to get to that point where I'm doing all the things that makes a woman just feel like her most
Absolutely.
feminine.
Absolutely.
And there were parts, I guess, my relationship or past relationships where I feel like I wasn't masculine enough at some times, and that may have affected the relationship.
Yeah,
And
most definitely.
that's something I think about now.
Yeah.
Not then when I was in the relationship. I thought I was, as far as being a man goes, I don't feel like I was ever looked at as less of a man.
Of course.
Until like now, when I think about certain things that didn't exist
Absolutely.
in me. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that was probably the biggest thing.
I can definitely resonate with that, because it brings me back to a really good friend of mine. He's actually friends with some of my friends, and one of the things that kind of showed up for him, for example, is with his wife, they could be walking in a street and it was brought up to him like, hey, as a man, there's just certain cues, certain things that you'll pick up on, like having your woman walk on the inside as opposed to the outside, just to make sure that she's protected.
Right.
And it's not to point judgment or anything, but if your masculinity isn't developed, if you don't have a blueprint, then how would you ever really know?
Right.
So where do you learn that from? You learn it from either father figure or some man in your life that's not necessarily exuding toxic masculinity. And my recommendation for those of you who are single moms is, if you're raising a young boy, get your young boy around positive role models, around men that are representative of the sacred masculine, and that are leading by example, and that are not only courageous but also compassionate. Because the path to sacred masculinity is embodying courage but also compassion at the same time. I really appreciate you even sharing that part of your journey.
Yeah, there's certain, and it can be small things too, just paying the bills, or it wasn't really so much of a leadership type of role that I was taught to lead in my relationship.
And that's a big part of the process. Just leading. If you're in a relationship, if you're a masculine man in a relationship with a feminine woman, then that divine femininity is depending on your leadership. And I love the saying that women don't want to be ruled, but they want to be led. And as men, it's so important for us to be the head of our household. The woman is more so the neck to help support and give us guidance in a sense. Right. But we have to properly lead. And if you're not leading in your relationship as the masculine figure, then you end up getting depolarized and you lose the passion in the relationship. So I love the fact that you mentioned that part, because when it comes to relationships, especially in today's day and age, men are being emasculated, and men are not properly developing their masculinity. And a lot of women are having to pay the price because of a lot of lack of leadership, and compassionate leadership at that. It's not enough to just lead. You have to lead from a place of compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing more beautiful than to just see your woman bask in her femininity.
Absolutely.
And then show you her appreciation for you allowing her to be in that.
Of course.
Because I've never had a woman that I dated actually like display it or even say it or make me even feel it.
Yeah, most
And
definitely.
so when that happens, it's a totally different experience
Oh yeah,
in your relationship.
definitely. I like the fact that you even brought up the whole 50-50 thing. I always go back to the 50-50 because that was one of the biggest mistakes that I ever made on my journey. And a great mentor of mine once said that the issue with going 50-50 on everything is the moment you go 50-50 with your feminine partner, you relinquish your crown, right? You can't truly have the crown if you're operating at a 50-50. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. And women rely on our strength to be able to take full responsibility. And the word responsibility comes from your ability to respond to a setback, to a crisis, to any obstacles that you're going through in your life. And if you do not know how to properly respond to that, which, let's be real, we don't have the same kind of emotions that our feminine counterparts have. So they rely on us to be strong and properly respond to these situations. And if you truly want to become successful, for example, then you have to expand your capacity for responsibility. The more you expand your capacity, the more you can be responsible for. So again, going back to the idea of 50-50, if my wife is 50% of everything, then I'm obviously sharing a crown with her. And I'm talking about the crown of the king.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like she has her own crown as a queen,
Yeah.
but I should not push those expectations for her to take on that heavy load and at the same time cook and clean and nurture and have sex and do all of these things to feed my needs in a sense.
Right.
And that's where the issue lies in today's generation. And this is why the divorce rate is over 50% right now, for the simple fact that men are not knowing how to be men. And we need to really step up as a generation and really exude more sacred masculinity, where, again, it's a place of courage and compassion. How does a man develop that? It starts in childhood. There's a quote by Frederick Douglass that I love, and I'm paraphrasing here. We'll share the quote in the description, but it's something along the lines of, if you don't want a generation of men that have to heal, you have to take care of the youth, the young boys, right? It starts with them. So if you don't raise them in an environment where they're broken, then you won't have to fix them in adulthood.
Right.
So you have to nurture their development into masculinity, because then they become narcissists. Then they become egotistical. Then they cause all the problems that we have in the world. Think about all of the major wars, all of the issues that we've faced as a civilization. It's come from toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
It's not the women that are causing the wars. It's not the women that are causing all of the problems on the planet. It's broken masculinity.
Yep.
So if we want to heal the planet, it's going to take for us to heal our young men.
Amen.
And we're not going to heal the young men by making them more feminine. It's developing and strengthening and supporting the development of their masculinity, for sure.
Yes.
So the Frederick Douglass quote that I was mentioning is, "It is easier to build strong children than to fix broken men." I've been such an advocate for that message and the way that I go about raising my children. If we're truly going to heal the planet, we have to heal the broken masculinity. And as we switch gears here, I really wanted to talk about your journey in entrepreneurship, specifically when it comes to some of your biggest obstacles, because sometimes we look at all the glamorous stuff, right? People are looking at your projects. The other day we were looking at a spiritual retreat that you did, and this was VH1 style, amazing content. And by the way, if you guys need any content creation or videography, anything like that, photography, reach out to Trey and get booked, because his work is absolutely amazing, as you can see in the production here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so kudos to you on that. But I'm sure there's a lot of people that they may be inspired. They may see you traveling. We were just in Arizona on a business trip, living our best life, of course. We had a whole VIP pool party and all this
Man, that was amazing.
amazing stuff going
It was
on there.
amazing.
Yeah, and people see things like that, and they see you with your relationship. They see you taking on really cool projects, and the fact that you're even full-time. And part of the Journey podcast that's so important for me is showcasing people's journey, especially through entrepreneurship, because there are a lot of people who are aspiring entrepreneurs, and they just can't seem to get around to doing it full-time because it's so challenging, it's so difficult. And sometimes people may look at someone like yourself and think that it's all sunshine and rainbows, but in fact, there are a lot of struggles and obstacles along the way. And if you don't mind sharing, what have been some of your greatest obstacles along the way and the lessons that came from that?
Some of the biggest obstacles are really, okay, so like staying motivated is one of them. Being able to wake up every day and have the same energy or even more
that's
energy
a big one.
than you had the day before,
Of course.
it's an obstacle. But in practicing reading more, looking for inspiration, having a supportive partner, girlfriend, and supportive partner as well, like a business partner. So having both supportive partner helps in that. The lesson that I learned, like the biggest lesson that I learned, is just practicing consistency and practicing meditation here and there, and
Self-care.
all around self-care. Just making sure that you're good. Because you can't
So
serve
important.
anybody if you're not
Exactly.
100%.
Can't fill from an empty cup.
Exactly. It was a struggle. There's some mental struggles. There's some lifestyle in general struggles. And then there's the finance
Of course.
side of things where it's like money's slow sometimes.
Yep.
Sometimes you're not
Business.
making
Absolutely.
the amount of money you made last month.
You're in a winter season.
And there are seasons. Seasons do exist.
Exactly.
So it's not always going to be a great month or a great week
It's so good.
or a great year.
Such valuable advice.
Yeah, so I learned that, I want to say, after my first year of going full-time. First year was, I don't think most people have as much success as I had my first year going full-time. But that first year, I was able to identify those seasons.
Of course.
And when I hit that season, and it was toward the end of that year where the season slowed down, and that was tax time. And as a business owner who works with other business owners during tax season, a lot of things shift.
Yep.
A lot of changes are being made. And I felt it. I felt that money wasn't coming in as consistent. A lot of people were focusing on other areas of their business. And it taught me that I need to find other ways to generate income within my business, or find something passively that can help me generate income, so that I'm not sitting there worried and scared about where the next dollar is going to come from.
Yeah.
So
That's important. That's important. I've experienced that myself. I was always aware that the winter season was inevitable. The winter season as an entrepreneur will come, whether you like it or not. It does not matter what business you are in. Business is cyclical. Just like the economy is cyclical, everything in life is cyclical. And yes, you will have your harvest season, but when that winter comes, you better prepare, because it hits different. There's no steady paycheck coming in. There's no one to count on when that drought comes around. And it's so essential to have what I refer to it as a peace of mind fund. The most commonly accepted term is an emergency fund, but I refer to it as a peace of mind fund. I don't like to create something as a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will, and create emergency situations in my life.
Correct.
If you're an entrepreneur, some advice that I would like to share as well on the topic of just the winter season is have that peace of mind fund, have that rainy day fund, where when the winter season comes, you have a nest egg available to you. Do not blow through all of your money. You don't have the luxury of going out and turning up and spending money on nonsense if you have not prepared for the winter season, especially for those of you who have other people who depend on you financially, like children or a significant other for that matter. Yes, the winter season is inevitable, and make sure you're always prepared for it. 2 to 6 months worth of fixed expenses, because as we know, the winter season, it may be a couple of months in that winter season, and you have to give yourself enough time to get yourself out of it.
And if something like COVID happens again, then you definitely want to make
Yeah.
sure you have something that's going to sustain you.
Oh, yeah.
That is pretty much foolproof.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where it was an eye opener, because that was a fun run that whole year, but at the end of it, I realized as a business owner, okay, I need to put more things in line.
Of course.
And passive income was it was a no-brainer. It was
Yeah.
one of those things where it's like, everyone needs this. And not telling you where to invest your money, but there's things like real estate, there's things like stocks. People choose what they like. And for me, it was real estate. It was just lifestyle in general that I felt was going to be a great way to generate
sure.
that peace of mind.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. And that's such a valuable statement too, because as entrepreneurs and business owners, you may have a business that depends on you for that business to operate. You may be self-employed or you may be a freelancer. So the downside to that, going back to relationships, is when you do want to spend time with your sweetheart or go on that vacation, you don't have any revenue coming in. And I love what Warren Buffett once said. He says, if you cannot find a way to get paid while you sleep, you will simply work until you die. So as much as you love your craft, as much as you adore your profession, you also have the understanding that, hey, if I'm ever going to be free, I need some form of passive residual income. And that's where multiple streams come into play. The average millionaire, 3 to 7 streams of income on average. So go get you some if you don't have any passive residual. Now, Trey, I wanted to ask you, brother, you spoke a little bit about some of the obstacles along the way. If you can give any one of our listeners or viewers any piece of advice from your journey on maybe a lesson along the way that you've gained along the way, what is one message that comes to mind that you would love to leave the audience?
Find something that you believe in and go after that. Move in that direction. Don't let anything sway you from that belief. But don't allow limiting beliefs to exist within your heart or within your world. And just continue to build and expand your mindset.
It's beautiful, beautiful.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, love it, definitely. And I agree 100%. The last thing that I'll ask you is, obviously, we're most likely going to have you back on the podcast. And the beautiful thing about the Journey podcast is, my hope is that we can bring many of the people that we interview back on the show and do a follow-up on the journey. Maybe things take a completely different direction. Maybe they go into a winter season, or maybe they expand much further than they even anticipated. So fast forward, let's just say a year to 5 years out. What is the vision for Trey? What is the vision for your life overall and the work that you do in entrepreneurship?
My vision is to, I want to travel a lot more. I just want to see more of the world, and I want to be able to take my camera everywhere I go.
Absolutely.
And
we're going to Thailand in September.
We are going to Thailand.
We are going to Thailand.
And I'm taking my camera. I'm taking my
drone. Really excited about that.
And I'm gonna network. I'm gonna try to find some business in Thailand. I'm gonna try to make it to where I'm out there often, if I like it, of course, which I'm pretty sure I will. But I want to travel. Like, down the line, I just want to be able to do what I love without any time constraints, without any financial constraints, without really having to worry.
Of course.
So I want to be able to, my goal is to continue to build out my legacy as Trey First Class Productions, and to be able to take my hands off the wheel, but have a team, have an actual company with employees and or contractors that are helping me build the business as well.
Of course, scaling up.
And that's helping me scale up, so where I don't have to be there, so where I can go on vacation and my business is still making money for me. So I want to turn my production business into a passive.
Nice.
Passive. Something that
Streamline
generates,
everything.
streamline to where it's generating money for me passively.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's my goal.
Yeah, I love that. Basically instilling systems, and systems, as sometimes we may hear, is an acronym for saving yourself some time, energy, and money.
Yeah.
That's basically what you want, freedom in your life. And that's what I appreciate about your journey and just your authenticity is on the journey, I don't necessarily care to just interview people who have it all together, because nobody can relate to that. Let's be real. Most people relate to someone like yourself who's at the early stages and who may not have it all figured out, but you're well on your way and you've taken the great leap. I know how difficult it can be, how scary it can be, how discouraging at times it can be, or even frustrating. And the fact that you've even taken the great leap on this side of living, where you're actually living in alignment with who God intends you to be.
Right.
I love the fact that you have taken that great leap and you're here just figuring it out. You're on this journey, living authentically you and doing it in your way, right? And I look forward to a lot of the projects that we create together. And obviously we're business partners, so there's going to be a lot of incredible things that we do together
they're
in
going to
business.
see a lot more of you.
And by the way, Trey has been killing it in business outside of all of this stuff, and we'll save that for the next podcast episode.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that there's going to be a lot more success by then. Really excited to just do more life with you, brother, as not only a business partner, but also as a brother in life. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to showcase your story to the world, to leave an impact on those who are aspiring entrepreneurs, aspiring creatives, and just people in general who are looking to go after their dreams. So thank you. I will ask that you just share with the audience really quick, where can they find you?
You can find me on all social media. Facebook is my name, Tristan Turner. Instagram at Trey First Class _productions. TikTok at Trey First Class _ YouTube, Trey First Class Productions, and Threads at Trey First Class _ Productions. And then you can also visit my website, www.treyfirstclassproductions.com. So,
Love it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Make sure you reach out to Trey for your next project that requires content creation. Till next time, we'll be seeing you guys. Thank you so much. God bless every last one of you. And Trey, thanks again, my brother.
Thank
It's been
you.
a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's a wrap.
Thanks again for tuning into this episode. It would mean the world to me if you can follow, subscribe, share, or even leave a review. I look forward to putting out more content, and we'll see you on another episode.